Now, on the Georgia vote, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis squares off with state Republicans over her investigation into the 2020 election. Another 2020 phone call and a high-pressure moment for a longtime top Georgia lawmaker. And a reality show star running for Congress in Georgia, while she's taking on a long-tenured incumbent. It's all right now on the Georgia Vote.
From the 11 Alive studios, this is the Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Good Sunday morning. Faith Jesse is off this week, but you will see her interview with congressional candidate Heavenly Kimes coming up in about 10 minutes. The Georgia legislative session is still 3 weeks away, but there was plenty of activity this week at the Capitol. A special Senate committee questioned Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis about the 2020 election interference case, and Willis came to the Capitol ready to defend her office.
I took an oath to do the right thing. People came into my community and committed a crime, and I indicted them. And rest assured, if someone else comes in my community and commits a crime, I will indict them again.
The special Senate committee is looking into why Willis decided to prosecute President Donald Trump and 18 others in the Fulton County election interference case and how her office handled that case. Willis and her office were removed from the case after it was revealed she had a romantic relationship with Nathan Wade, whom she hired as a special prosecutor in that case. Willis repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, calling the hearing political posturing. But Republicans say the defendants, whose cases have been dismissed, deserve answers.
I think about my friends who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars defending themselves against these politically motivated charges, and that's the witch hunt.
The committee is made up of 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats. It has no power to directly sanction Willis, but has said it plans to use the testimony to recommend future legislation. This week, for the first time, we heard audio of a 2020 call between President Donald Trump and then Speaker of the Georgia House, David Ralston. In it, President Trump asked Ralston, a fellow Republican, to call a special session of the state legislature, a move that could have opened the door to efforts to reverse the results of Georgia's 2020 election, which Joe Biden was narrowly certified as the winner. Here is some of that recording published by the New York Times.
You do it to uncover fraud. You could say for transparency and to uncover fraud, possible fraud. So who's going to stop you for that? You know, it's like
a federal judge, possibly.
The House Speaker said on that call that his team was evaluating their options, but ultimately they never called for that special session. Ralston died in 2022, but there were others in his office who were listening to the conversation as it happened, and one of them was his chief of staff, Spiro Amburn, a Republican and a frequent Georgia Vote panelist. We asked him about the 2020 election and Ralston's decision not to pursue a special session. You're a Republican. Speaker Ralston's a Republican.
Yeah.
There were parts of the Republican Party in Georgia that very much wanted to see a special session called in the wake of the 2020 election. Speaker Ralston didn't do that. The governor didn't do that. That special session never happened. To a Republican who might look back in that moment and feel like the speaker should have taken a different course of action, what would you say to them?
I would say to those Republicans that the speaker did his job. He did the job he was elected to do, not just as Speaker of the House, but for his district and for the entire state of Georgia. And whether you're a Republican or Democrat, that's what you take an oath of office to do. I believe that he did that, and that if he were here today and could go back and do it again, he would do the same thing. He could not call a special session himself, so he did his job. He fulfilled his constitutional duties and obligations as Speaker of the House.
He felt like, and you felt like, he was complying with the letter of the law.
Absolutely.
It is time now to bring in our Politics Roundtable. Today joining us, we have Fausa Bach, Senior Managing Director at Denton's. She's also the former Executive Director of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. Also with us today, Mark Roundtree, a Republican strategist and a pollster. He's also the founder of Landmark Communications and a veteran of many Georgia campaigns and elections. Also with us today, Shannon McCaffrey, who leads the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's team that covers the state capitol. She's a veteran political reporter. all returning panelists. Guys, thank you so much for joining us as always, and a lot to talk about in Georgia politics this week and this year. This is the last Georgia vote of the year before the holidays. Shannon, let's start with you. When you look back at 2025, what were the big moments that stick with you?
Boy, it's been busy for a non-election year.
Hasn't
I'll say
it?
that much. I was thinking about this. I think two things stand out. One was something that didn't happen, and this was Brian Kemp's decision not to run for the Senate, which really kind of had such repercussions throughout so many other different races and through so many other different candidates. So I think that decision really has sort of set the table for what we're going to be seeing next year. And the other thing is Fani Willis's disqualification from the Trump case, which took a case that had just enormous political consequences and put the nail in the coffin on that.
Mark, I want to bring you in. You're a Republican. One thing Shannon mentioned there was Governor Kemp's decision not to jump into the Senate race. It was widely reported he was heavily recruited to do so. Were you surprised by his decision to stay away?
Not at all.
Why?
I never thought he would run for this. Because Brian Kemp has been Georgia-born, Georgia politically bred, and never was interested in running and spending his life in Washington. His whole political career, whether it was state senate, whether it was other offices that he tried to get, Secretary of State, and now governor, it was always about Georgia, and I think he had no interest in going to D.C. I would say there are other candidates that are running on the Republican side, though, that seem to have done very well in Washington, D.C. Buddy Carter has done very well. Collins has done very well. And, of course, Derek Dooley is going for his first time at bat.
Who has the backing? Governor Kemp, we've mentioned, he's not in this race, but Derek Dooley has the backing of the governor. Fal, I want to ask you the same question we started with. What are the big moments that jump out to you from this year?
There were a bunch. I would say, from my perspective, it would be the Democrats winning the 2 PSC seats. That was like the first time in about 20 years where a Democrat had won statewide on constitutional offices. And then, of course, watching the special election happen a few weeks ago up in Athens or Watkinsville area where the Democrat flipped that seat, that was pretty big for us.
Democrats feeling like they have some momentum coming out of these races. Mark, we're going to ask you the big thematic question in a moment, but I want to make sure Republican has a chance to respond. Are Republicans worried about what Democrats see as a trend line here?
Not so much about the Public Service Commission race. That was sort of, it's not rigged in a Trumpian sense against them, but the political calendar was just terrible for the Republicans in the first place. There was nothing on the ballot that helped Republicans in that November race. There was an Atlanta mayoral election where you have just tens of thousands of Democrats showing up to vote, really in the mayoral election, and then just going virtually down ballot, so to speak, in a race they really didn't know anything about and just voting Democratic. The one that I think that they and I would be more concerned about are, for example, the state house race in the Clark County and Oconee County area.
District 121.
That was a district the Republicans should not have lost. And I think there's a lot of review going on about that in particular.
Shannon, let's bring you in. I know your team, the politics team at the AJC, has done a lot of reporting on that House district that a lot of people feel like was flipped. What are voters, what are people in the political space telling your team?
Well, we're hearing from Democrats, as you mentioned, they're thrilled. They feel like the wind is at their back, coming off the PSC races too. And Republicans are cautioning not to take too much, not to infer too much from this. That this is interesting, but it is not panic mode yet. One thing that I did think was interesting, though, is State Insurance Commissioner John King, who had been planning to run for higher office and then decided not to, kind of sent up a warning flare, and he said Republicans need to be looking at this. Republicans need to get our acts together and get a message. So it was interesting that he kind of took that role as a little bit of a sage or a truth teller.
And John King was, for a period, in that Senate race before he backed out from it. Mark, let's ask you the big question. You weigh in here, and then I want to ask you our big question.
I did have one thing to add that was particularly interesting about that state house district in the Athens area that the Republicans lost, formerly had held. There were 11,000 people that voted in that race, which is an astronomically high number for a special election for the state house. A normal election turnout is 3,500 to 5,000 for perspective. That would be a normal turnout, so it was more than double.
So what's driving that? Fal and Mark, I want both your thoughts on this. Fal, maybe you first, and then Mark will go to you. What's driving that increased turnout?
I think what they're doing is the Democrats are messaging to folks. The message is resonating. It's getting people excited. And I think they're going to them to say, listen, we have a chance to flip this seat. are you guys going to get energized and back us, or are you guys going to kind of let it slip through our fingers? I think that kind of message helped drive people to the polls.
Mark, do Republicans see it the same way?
I think that it was really the Democrats that came out. Republicans usually come out in special elections. They're longer-term community people. They've lived in an area longer. They're registered to vote longer. They're usually more community involved than Democrats as a general rule. But to have 5,300 to 5,500, I can't remember the exact number, Democrats show up in that election was amazing. Usually, when Democrats win elections, there are large minority populations, and this is what's different. This is why it's a warning call for Republicans, even if they don't hear it yet. What's different about this race is that the turnout and the district itself was, frankly, heavily white. There were very few minorities in that district. It was white Democrats that were voting.
And this was a district,
that's different.
We're short on time. This was a district Republicans expected to hold. Obviously, that wasn't the case here. You talk about a warning sign. We're going to talk after the break about what we're all looking for going into 2026. We'll be right back for more of the Georgia Vote right after this. A dentist turned reality TV star now has her eyes on Washington. Married to Medicine cast member Dr. Heavenly Kimes, she is running as a Democrat in Georgia's 13th congressional district. The district, represented currently by Democrat David Scott, includes parts of 6 metro Atlanta counties, including Clayton, Henry, DeKalb, and Gwinnett. According to Federal Election Commission data, there are 13 other candidates who filed to run. 10 of those are Democrats, including Kimes. Our Faith Jesse talked with Kimes about how she plans to balance reality TV with real life.
Your castmate, Toya Bush Harris, she had some criticism for you during that. She said that you can't maintain your relationships in your friend group. She said that she thought that this was a joke and that the state representative wouldn't be you because you can't even hear the people. What is your response to Toya?
You know what? She has a very valid question there. You know, I honestly view reality TV as entertainment. I think you see a small portion of someone, but not the whole portion. I think that I'm very passionate about the things I believe in, meaning family, my family, and the health care for people. So yeah, I am loud. I am maybe not polished. In fact, I'm gonna name my first book Unpolished. But I think that's absolutely what you need in Congress right now. Somebody that's not afraid to speak up, speak out, and answer the questions when they're even uncomfortable to answer.
Toya said that she would not vote for you. I'm sure there's others who say that they will not vote for you. What's your message to them?
My message to him, well, first of all, she can't vote for me, but I wanted to make sure that people know the difference between reality TV. I've actually been working in 9 practices for over 25 years. I feel like there is a side of me that is a professional as a doctor, because I've been a doctor way before that. I have a side of me that does reality TV, and I do that job very well as well, entertaining people. And then I have a side of me that will be a politician, that will be bold, that will be unbought, unafraid, and speak up and speak loudly for the people in District 13.
How do you convince public perception that what they're seeing on Married to Medicine is not what they're going to get in Congress, or is that what they're going to get in Congress?
I think that people understand that long before reality TV, I'm a doctor. I've been a doctor for a very long time. I've actually built businesses from the ground up. I have negotiating skills. I'm able to do things and make things happen. I'm the only person in this district that can boast that I've lived here for over 25 years, but I've also created jobs in every county in this district. And there's something to be said for that. Yes, I'm bold. Yes, I'm loud. Yes, I'm unapologetic. And I think those are the things that we need in Congress right now. I think for now, our congressman has been silent. You have a draw in the sand. Do you want somebody to not speak up and speak out for you? Or do you want somebody that's a professional that lived the life? I'm a girl that grew up on food stamps, a girl that grew up on WIC, and I know what my constituents are going through right now. They're struggling, right? And I want to speak loud, boldly, and I have passion in what I do and how I do it. And I think that's exactly what we need in Congress right now. Not someone that's silent, not someone that's going to be meek and meager and ask politely, somebody that's going to speak out, speak up for the people in District 13.
What's the number one thing you would want to speak up about if you're elected?
It has to be healthcare. Affordability actually encapsulates everything. Healthcare, affordability with housing, and you know, those eggs are very high. So affordability starting off, but of course healthcare. People are going to lose their healthcare insurance. And with the cracks in it, we've actually done extensive research on the Georgia pathway system. Nobody knows what's going on. They don't know how to get through it. So I'm coming up with roundtable discussions to come up with apps to walk walk people through that system. And not only that, a lot of mental health people cannot have the cognitive skills to actually work those 80 hours a month. So we have to actually come up with ideas that's just not a blanket that take over everybody, but actually deal with people individualized so everybody is covered and everybody's taken care of. And I'm very passionate about that.
That is just a part of their conversation. Faith's full interview, it is available right now, streaming on 11 Alive Plus. All right, we are back now with our Politics Roundtable. Guys, so much to talk about. Let's briefly spend some time on this congressional race. Shannon, let's start with you again. More than a dozen people running. How crowded of a primary is this?
It's a huge crowded primary. I mean, realistically speaking, this seat will remain in Democratic hands. So the Democratic primary is the one that's going to matter. When you have that many people running, you know there's going to be a runoff. And so most likely, I would guess that you're going to see David Scott, the incumbent, versus whoever it manages to kind of coalesce the support around them. A reality star has name ID. A reality star is good in front of a camera. There are lots of other people in the race, but they're all going to split up the vote. So it'll be interesting to see who rises above the fray to make it to one of those runoff spots.
Val, how hard is it if you're advising a candidate to emerge and get attention in a field that is this crowded?
Oh, it's very hard. I mean, the messaging, you see a lot of the candidates, a lot of their messaging overlaps, especially in a primary. I think what's going to be the make or break is how good the ground game is. If you can go out and meet your voters and talk to them one-on-one and get people to say, okay, I'm coming out to vote for A candidate, B candidate, I think that's the way to victory.
Mark, let's switch gears here and pick up where we left off in the first block of the Georgia vote here. We were talking about looking ahead to 2026. And this is a question I want to ask all of you, but let's start with you, Mark. What are the big things you're watching out for as we head into this really big election year next year?
Really, I think it's the Democratic primary is going to say an awful lot more than the Republican primary, and both speak to the parties. But there is an evolution happening in the Democratic primary. And so Georgia Democrats are going to have to decide, kind of a path. And the candidates that are coming out of some of these primaries, I think from a traditional American point of view and a Republican point of view, I would view them as cray-cray. I mean, they are left-wing, woke, intolerant, and angry.
I bet Val's going to have a response to
this. She might, and
yeah.
She'll disagree with me. But so you kind of have the cray versus the cray-cray. And so, long story short, I think the Democratic primary is going to say an awful lot about how these things go. I would like to give a shout-out to the Heavenly there that did the interview. She has, of the candidates that I saw, she has focused the most on doing a very good website. She has a good website.
Spoken like somebody who's run a lot of
campaigns. And you have David Scott, who is very traditional. He has the flag up there, which is very uncommon for Democrats now to have flags. But he has sort of a variation of a flag. But the others don't use that. But she has a website.
We're low on time here. Val, let's give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah. I mean, the candidates that are coming out now, they may have different, bigger, bolder ideas, but that's what people want to hear now. And we're seeing that because they're getting elected. And so I think that the folks, the American people in general, and Georgians too, are tired of just being the same old story over and over again, the same old candidate, the one that's been trying to run since they were 15 years old. And so I think that they want somebody who's new, somebody who's fresh, who has bold ideas, who can come and say, I'm listening to what you guys need. I'm going to fight for what y'all want.
And with 30 seconds left, Shannon, one word that hasn't exactly come up in this conversation yet, but has driven a lot of the conversation, affordability. We've heard Democrats and Republicans talking about this a lot, right?
Yeah. And honestly, that was the word I was going to mention. Mark mentioned what we'll learn from the Democratic primary, and I'm actually really curious to see if the Republican primary, if they will kind of learn from that PSC race and really embrace that theme, which seems to very much be resonating with voters right now. Mm-hmm.
Good news. We're going to find out soon enough in just a couple weeks when 2026 arrives. That's all the time we have left for the panel here. Guys, thank you. More of the Georgia Vote. We'll be right back after this. The final election of 2025 in Metro Atlanta, it ended with a new state senator. Jaha Howard defeated fellow Democrat Roger Bruce in a runoff Tuesday. Howard takes the Senate seat in District 35, which includes parts of Fulton and Cobb counties. He replaces Jason Estevez, who is now running for governor. Communities in Georgia, they are still recovering after Hurricane Helene hit more than a year ago. This is some of the damage left behind in our state after that storm, and the process has been more painful. Cities and counties are still waiting for federal natural disaster aid that was approved in Congress more than a year ago. Now more than $300 million and FEMA disaster funding is coming into Georgia after a push from many state lawmakers, including Senator Raphael Warnock.
It should not have taken this long. We should not have gotten to this point, and there is still more work to be done.
Senator Warnock says this aid will bring relief, but recovery from Hurricane Helene, it is ongoing in communities all across Georgia. He's asking for an additional $300 million to be released. Stay with us. A special year-end Voice of the Voter, that's coming up next. Well, we have said it all year long, you can't have the Georgia vote without Georgia voters. Everyday Georgians from all across our state, week after week after week, have shared their time and thoughts about this political year like no other with us, with all of us, and with you. Here now, a look back at 2025's Voice of the Voter. What's the number one issue you hope these candidates address?
Well, I'm not necessarily the biggest political person. I think that food security is the biggest thing in my opinion.
I think for me, it would probably be healthcare.
Put more money into the youth, community spaces, sports, mentorship programs.
We're a Christian nation, and that's what we were founded on, and that's what we should stand by.
What would you say you're most concerned about when it comes to access and affordability?
When you look at things like hospitals and cancer and stuff like that, we have amazing hospitals in Atlanta, you know, between Emory, Grady, Piedmont, Northside, but like the amount of people that need to get there is so hard.
When you look at the state of everything, what worries you the most?
The state of politics and the division in the country is probably the most alarming thing I've worried about in my lifetime.
But on a national level, I would love to see the two parties work together and not always fight each other.
We always end with this question: what are you most optimistic about?
I like that last question because I think optimism is crucial, always.
This idea of family building, legacy building, and self-sustainability, included with sustainability coming from your community, is something that we really need right now. And the more we go back to these more traditional American values, I think we'll see a lot of positive change in our smaller community circles.
I know politicians and people that have in high positions, I know they take nice trips to places that look like this. Without this, we can't survive. Us, animals, without nature, we can't survive. I feel that I just got to get the right person in Fulton County and the right person in South Fulton that can say, yes, it's very important.
Well, thanks for watching us today. The Georgia vote is off for the holiday. We return on Sunday, January 11th for a preview of the legislative session. We'll see you then. Have a wonderful holiday.